So in that vein of healing and wholeness, shlemut, this idea of wholeness for the world and wholeness for ourselves, it's my honor, it's my privilege, my pleasure to invite our speaker this evening, a friend and someone I've gotten to know through some work, and I'm thrilled that she will speak with us tonight. So Roshan is, she joined SPAN, the Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence, as the Community Resource Coordinator in 2017 and became the Shelter Program Director in May of 2018. So she works to support, she has 15 years experience, more than 15 years experience providing counseling, support, and advocacy for survivors of individual and institutional violence. And she's here today to help us understand a little bit about Safe House here in Boulder, the Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence, SPAN, and to help us understand a little bit about how we can support them as well. So come on up, Roshan.
Well, thank you, everyone. I was nervous about finding the right words, and now listening to the sounds that have filled this space for the last hour, I feel especially nervous because there's nothing I could possibly do that would be as beautiful or as powerful as what we've been doing together for the last hour. So I really appreciate being invited and being able to sing and pray and stand with you tonight. So thank you very much. As Holly said, I direct the shelter program at the Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence. It's a long name for an organization that's been here in Boulder for about 40 years. We are the domestic violence organization in Boulder, so we work to support survivors of domestic violence directly, as well as to educate and advocate for survivors, and advocate for the end of domestic violence. We are in all of the public schools here in Boulder Valley, as well as in Broomfield, supporting kids and learning about consent, safe relationships, and safety. We are also in many community organizations working to educate and train folks who are serving members of our community as well. Most of our work, though, is in direct service. So we have a counseling program that works with children, adults, and families. We do legal advocacy for folks in need of safety, and we have a housing team that helps folks find safe and affordable housing who have survived domestic violence. My job is to direct the actual shelter, which I think of as the heart of the Safe House Progressive Alliance for Nonviolence. For those of you who don't know, we provide safe, confidential emergency shelter for up to 27 people at a time who are fleeing domestic violence, so folks who are on the run from an abusive partner. We are an inclusive shelter, for those of you who don't know, so that means we serve folks across all spectrum of gender and sexuality. Folks stay with us for about 6 weeks at a time, and during that time receive advocacy, counseling, and support. So that's what I do all day. And when Holly asked me to come and speak to you tonight, I was trying to think of what I wanted to talk about. So I went back and was looking at some of the readings for tonight and reread some of the Exodus story. And I was struck visiting that journey again, that journey from slavery to autonomy, from oppression to freedom, from violence to safety. I was struck rereading that story by the difficult truth that where you start and where you end are rarely the most powerful part of the story. That the power comes in the walking, it's in the work and in the wilderness. It is in the wandering that we find our faith. For the Israelites, escaping the violence of slavery was hard, but it was really only the first step. The Israelites find their faith not in the leaving, but in the wandering. And this is true for survivors of intimate partner violence as well. Leaving the abuser is hard. Getting out and finding shelter is hard, but it is only the beginning of the journey. When folks arrive with us at shelter, that's when the real work begins. In the Exodus story, over and over again, the Israelites cry out to the Lord for answers. Why would you bring us out of bondage only to starve, only to struggle, to perhaps die here in the wilderness? Being at shelter can feel like that at times. Being at shelter is an act of extreme faith. Faith that you took a step alone out into the wilderness in the hopes that someone would be waiting there for you with healing hands and a kind heart. Faith that even though you were alone, you will not be alone on the journey. At Shelter, we hear the struggles of our clients as they struggle with these moments of fear and faith. The work of faith that happens at Shelter is often very mundane. Finding safe housing, finding a job that pays you and allows you to do dignified work, finding health care, finding child care so that you can go to that job, finding the money to pay for the transportation to get you to those places. This is the mundane, everyday work that people have to do while they are struggling to heal broken bodies and bended spirits, spirits bent by a person whose violence was supposed to be love. We meet those cries, we hear folks cry out, and we often cry out with them. We work hard to try to meet those cries with justice and kindness, with compassion and care. We seek always to offer love and choice and freedom to the folks who stay with us. We hope to be the presence in the wilderness where people can find their fullness and their wholeness. It is our prayer that everyone who stays with us feels recognized not just as a person who wanders, but as a person who is called. But what I want you to know tonight is that we do not do this work alone. Since the very first days of our shelter, Har Hashem has walked with us, and I'm mostly here to say thank you for all that you do and all that you have done. One of our very first board members, one of our founding board members, is a member of Congregation Har Hashem. In the 40 years that we have been here in Boulder, you all have offered mitzvah over and over again, coming to Shelter to build, to paint, to repair, and to be present with clients in their hours of need. You've offered financial support to clients and to our organization. You've offered transportation assistance, which may sound small, but it is probably the most vital thing we can do for people. So we really, really appreciate you. Most recently, I have had the great honor of working with Holly and Alice, I don't know if Alice is in the room tonight, as part of our spiritual support team. So we have a group of about 15 clergy from across the county who come to Shelter each week to offer spiritual reflection time and care for clients. It's an opportunity to ask hard questions about why am I here, what can be done, and what's next for me with someone who will listen and understand. So this is what Holly's been doing for us week after week, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you sharing her gifts with us. So that's really what I wanted to say to you is thank you. I want to say thank you for all of the ways that you have shared our walk, but mostly for the ways that you have laid down the stones that have allowed us to walk that path. I appreciate you for your mercy and your mission. You truly are the presence of divine love for so many, for myself, for our clients, and for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan. And if people want to know how more they can support, how you can support SPAN, there's brochures and things out there. But yeah, so the person who helped found it, Barbara Gould, so a name that we all know and love. So thank you for acknowledging that too. Let's